welcome to the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, continuing my 2016 NFL season recaps, and today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And similar to the Chicago Bears, this is a team that I looked at and I said, man, how did they only win 3 games? This is a team that honestly really underachieved, and you could see just beyond the media hype and what everyone was talking about before the season, there was an actual team here, and there was a chance for them to win more games than they did, but there are a couple weeds and losers on this roster, in this organization, that really prevented this team from really growing this year. We're going to talk about it. First, let's look at the key games from this 2016 season. Let's start with week 1, right? Against the Green Bay Packers. You guys are in a very close game with them, a game you guys had a chance to win. If you guys do, perhaps you guys go down a different path than you end up going this season. We look at week 4 over in London against the Indianapolis Colts. Great victory there, and it gave you hope for this Jaguars season. And then the week after that, you guys had a bye week, I believe, and the week after that, you went to go beat the Chicago Bears. So they're 2-3 at that point. You think, hey, maybe they could do something, but then they end up doing nothing, as they end up losing 9 games in a row. The next key game to me being against the Tennessee Titans, and I think what was week 8 on Thursday Night Football. An embarrassing performance. Yes, the scoreboard only says that they lost by 14 points, but man, if you watch the game, it was much worse than that. The Titans just blew them out and dominated them, and that is when they should have fired Gus Bradley. Okay, that is when they should have made the move, and if they did make the move, perhaps this is a team with 4, 5, 6 wins this season instead of 3. But they didn't make the move. They lost 9 straight games. Still did not fire Gus Bradley until the 9th game of that losing streak in Houston. So then we have the next key game as they defeat the Tennessee Titans in week 16. Marcus Mariota breaks his leg. I cry because I'm a Titans fan, and the Jaguars win their easiest and best win of the season, 38-17. And you see the emergence of Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to get into him in a moment. A great win for this franchise. And then week 17, almost able to beat the Colts, but fail miserably at the end. So there goes the 2016 season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's look at, there goes the 2016 season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's look at some individual performances from this year. Let's start with the offense. Let's start with the quarterback, Blake Bortles. And for those of you that are new to this channel, let me introduce you into what I like to call the Blake Bortles is a loser segment of the program, where I explain that Blake Bortles is a loser. And I know this because I had a conversation with Donald Trump, who told me himself. He said, look, I like Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles is a nice guy. The guy's a lightweight. The guy's a total loser. He doesn't know how to win. He's a loser. And you know what? Donald Trump is right? 16 interceptions, plenty of them occurring in the 4th quarter, plenty of them occurring at the most crucial, important times of the game. Fumbles occurring at the most crucial, important times of the game. Blake Bortles doesn't know how to win games. The guy that went down, faced Louisville, went down the field and had a game-winning drive. That man is long gone. He's been long gone for a while now, and he doesn't know how to win games. We even saw this last season when the Jaguars went 5-11. Plenty of opportunities to win games late, failing multiple times. This guy is a loser. And to me, he's the clown of the year as it pertains to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We look at the running backs. I don't like him at all. TJ Yeldon, I will give you this. He is a dual threat. He can get passes out of the backfield and be a nice receiving back. But as a bell cow, no way in hell. He will never be a bell cow running back to me, or at least a good one. Sure, give him 300 carries. He's only going to get you 900 yards. TJ Yeldon. And then Chris Ivory, the other clown of the year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3 fumbles lost this season, under 3.8 yards per carry, a terrible season, getting paid a 5-year contract for $32 million, who, after having a breakout season, but you knew that he was going to do it again, and the Jaguars bought into it. Terrible year for Chris Ivory. 3 fumbles lost, and he only had like 120 carries on the season. Terrible year for Chris Ivory for what was a terrible year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look at the offensive line. Let's start with Kelvin Beachum, whom you signed to be your starting left tackle, and I was not impressed at all. A number of sacks allowed, not too many, but a number, like about 5, 6. And then also a number of penalties, about 10 penalties this year for Kelvin Beachum. Very odd, but you look at inside, Luke Joeckel. Now, he only played 4 games at left guard, but I was impressed. So you may say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we can do something with this guy that we took number 2 overall 3 or 4 years ago. You look inside at Brandon Linder. He found his place at center. Right guard, A.J. Cann. Pretty good guard right now in the NFL. And then Jeremy Parnell at right tackle position. I like Parnell. I think he was definitely not as good as he was in Dallas, but he's a good right tackle in the NFL. And this unit did do a better job of protecting Blake Bortles, but for some odd reason, he didn't care, right? Last year, he got sacked like 50 times. This year, he gets sacked 33 times. They do a much better job, and he does a worse job. That's all on Blake Bortles and the run game. We look at the wide receivers. And actually, wait, one more thing. I'm tired of people saying that the reason why these running backs don't do well is because of the offensive line. Look, the left side is pretty bad. Beachum and they had Tyler Shatley in there and Luke Joeckel. They're not great run blockers, yes. But why does Jordan Howard have 5 yards a carry? But 5 compared to the 3.8 that TJ Yeldon has? Even Frank Gore had more yards per carry than both these running backs. I mean, you'll be very hard pressed to find running backs in this league that had less yards per carries than these guys. They're just not very good. Okay, so I don't want to hear about this run blocking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's look at the wide receivers. What a great year from Marqise Lee. Wow, he finally stayed healthy and finishing with over 800 receiving yards. Great year for him. Allen Robinson, what a disappointing year from him. Yes, he led the receiving corps with 888 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. That's great. But man, the guy caught under 50% of his targets. A lot of that is on Blake Bortles. A lot of it I felt was on him. I don't think he really brought it this year. I think he kind of mailed it in middle of the season and a little in the beginning as well. Later in the season, he brought it on again, but to me, kind of mailed it in. Look at tight end. Julius Thomas cannot stay healthy. When he was healthy, wasn't as dominant as he used to be, but he was all right. And one more thing, Allen Hurns couldn't stay healthy as well, but there are still reasons for optimism there. So when I look at an offensive MVP, I will pick, it's close between Brandon Linder and Marqise Lee for me, honestly. I know Allen Robinson had more touchdowns and more receiving yards, but because Marqise Lee, to me, did such a surprising job, it's close between him and Brandon Linder. I know Linder's an offensive lineman, but man, the guy played great. So let me give it to both of them. Co-MVPs, Brandon Linder and Marqise Lee. Now let's look at the defense. Let's start with the secondary because I just want to talk about my boy Jalen Ramsey, who was a great pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he really started to turn it on at the end of the season. And not only is he just a coverage cornerback, he's much more than that, right? Richard Sherman is only a guy that can just cover on the outside. He can make okay tackles, but he's not an all-around player. Jalen Ramsey is an overall player, man, that can force fumbles, force turnovers, get run tackles, just make tackles for loss, get sacks. The guy's such a weapon. And he himself said, I felt kind of limited in this Jaguars defense. You got to turn this guy loose next year. Not only play him at corner, play him at safety, play him inside the box, outside the box, everywhere. Let this guy make plays because this boy will go off next year if you use him correctly. The other cornerbacks, Prince Amukarama, played all right, and Josh Johnson, and also Aaron Colvin ended up getting injured, but when he was on there, he played okay. These cornerbacks actually did a good job, and if you actually look at this defense as a whole, they actually did an all right job. In terms of yards allowed, you know, they were up there in terms of yards allowed in passing, in terms of being least amount of yards allowed, in passing, in rushing. They did give up a lot of rushing touchdowns in the red zone, but they didn't give up a lot of yards and yards per carry. This defense is actually pretty good, but the problem is they have a quarterback on the other side that loves throwing interceptions and loves having fumbles and giving turnovers like anything and everything. That's the problem with this team right now. And also just the horrible horrible coach that was Gus Bradley. So let's move on to the front seven. Malik Jackson. I don't know why so many people are saying that, oh, he had a bad year. He was a free agent bust. This was easily their best signing in free agency. Had a career high 6.5 in sacks. Was good against the run. Obviously good against the pass rushing. He was great this year. Great year for Malik Jackson. Look at the other side of the defensive line. Derek Marks, yeah, not a great year from him. And this is a guy that I think is starting to get old, and I think it's about to be done. You look at Jared Odrick ended up being injured. The defensive ends, Tyson Alualu, he's always been okay, but you've always wanted to replace him. Yannick Ngakoue, okay, out of Maryland, who had a very good year, 8 sacks. Now, one problem that I have with him right now is a lot of sacks, not a lot of tackles. I think he had like 23 tackles, 8 of them being sacks. Got to make more of an impact against the run. They're using him more as a pass rush specialist, okay, but make an impact against the run, please, I beg you. If he does, he'll be more complete player. Dante Fowler, not as good as Yannick Ngakoue. And all of a sudden, you're hoping that he can improve next year, once he has another year under him, and it's very possible. I mean, I look at Vic Beasley, he only had like 4 sacks his rookie season, and then he went off this year. Same thing could happen to Dante Fowler, but I didn't see too much that led me to believe it's going to happen. Look at the linebackers. Paul Pusluzny. I thought it was a great year for him. Plenty of tackles, plenty of pass defense. Great year overall. Telvin Smith. Wow, this guy's pretty incredible, man. He continues to develop and be a really good player in this linebacking core. Over 100 tackles for him as well. Myles Jack, limited a little bit, but when he was out there, did very good in coverage. Needs to be better against the run. Paul Pusluzny, I saw him make a couple more tackles than him when Myles Jack would miss, but there's reason for optimism there. We look at their safeties. Johnathan Cyprien, great year for him. Over 100 tackles again, making impact in the run game. Really impressed by Johnathan Cyprien. And then free safety Tashawn Gibson. Wasn't a great free agent signing, but he's been all right. So, defense MVP, for me, it's close between Jalen Ramsey and Malik Jackson and Paul Pusluzny and even Telvin Smith. I mean, they all played very well. I will give it to Jalen Ramsey because he won them a game. And he almost won them too, as he almost beat the Houston Texans, right? I mean, he was a huge driving force for that game, and he definitely was a huge factor against the Tennessee Titans. So because I can look at certain games and say, okay, he either won or almost won those games, I will pick him. Malik Jackson, though, Paul Pusluzny, Telvin Smith, Johnathan Cyprien, all very close. So there you go. Now let's real quick look back at the 2016 draft class for this football team. Jalen Ramsey, I gave that an A+. He's proven to be that. Myles Jack, I gave a B+. He's proven to be about that as well. Yannick Ngakoue, I gave a B+. I think he's proven to be that as well. So, I mean, I was pretty on point when it came to this Jaguars draft class. I even gave a D+ to Jonathan Woodard. When you guys picked him in the 7th round, he's no longer on the team. I gave a C+ to Tyron Holmes out of Arkansas, who I don't think is even on the team anymore. I gave a B+ to Brandon Allen, who's still on the team. I was pretty on freaking point when it came to this Jaguars draft class, and I believe I gave it an A-. I have to check that, but I think I've been right when it comes to this draft class thus far. Now let's look ahead. The 2016 season is done. Let's look ahead to 2017. This Jacksonville Jaguars team, yet another offseason with plenty of cap space, projected to have $66 million in cap room, about 7 draft picks, and here are their key free agents. Johnathan Cyprien, again, I felt he had a really good year. I would re-sign him, not for more than $7 million per year, but he shouldn't ask for more than that. We look at Prince Amukamara, had an all right year in what was a 1-year prove-it deal. I think he has proved it. I would re-sign him. We look at Luke Joeckel. It's going to be an interesting contract negotiation. He shouldn't ask for much after what was an injured season for this guy, so I would re-sign him. I think he still has some potential to him, and I liked his move at guard, so I would try to re-sign him. Tyson Alualu, I would just get rid of him at this point and then just draft some other nice rotational defensive linemen. We look at Abry Jones. He's all right. If you want to re-sign him as a depth signing, that's fine as well. Look at the team needs. Now, this we're going to get a little controversial, and they're not going to do it. But I'm saying quarterback. I don't think Blake Bortles is good enough at all. He's never going to learn to not turn over the football. This is his third straight season throwing for over like 14 interceptions, having over 18 turnovers. It's never going to work out to me. And I'm not sure who you could get in the second round. If Brad Kaya is available, I think I'm taking him. If Deshaun Watson is available, I might be taking him. I think quarterback is a need for this football team. And you can give him one more year, but man, I think you're going to get into trouble if you do that, because what's going to happen is, so right now, Blake Bortles' contract is up, and no, it's not up yet. It will be up after next season. And you have the option by March to pick up his fifth-year option, which will be for it's usually around $12 million for he was drafted third, so it should be around $12 million. That will be a fine contract, but if you start going down this road, you're going to end up picking up his option, and then he's going to do the same thing, like, is he our quarterback? We're not sure. Picking up franchising him, and then eventually letting him go. To me, let's see if we can take someone in the second round, and let's have a quarterback competition, right? To me, that needs to be the move here, because Blake Bortles, man, he got better protection this year. His receivers, they weren't as good, but they were still pretty good. Marqise Lee, Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns. You can wait for the perfect season where everyone's healthy, but that season's never going to come, man. You got to be good, and he really wasn't very good. I mean, you look at Dak Prescott, he missed Dez Bryant, but you know what he did? He used Cole Beasley, and he used him well, right? To me, Blake Bortles just isn't good enough. I don't think he's ever going to be good enough. The guy is just a loser. To me, that's a team need. But outside of him, we look at running back. Again, I don't know why Jaguar fans are so hesitant to move on from Blake Bortles, hesitant to move on from running backs, hesitant to move on from everybody. Running backs, got to improve. If you're not getting over 4 yards a carry, to me, you're just not good. And that includes Todd Gurley. I'm going to get into him in the LA Rams review. You got to get over 4 yards to carry, especially this year in the NFL. This was a resurgence of running backs in the NFL, okay? Everyone got over 1,000 yards, okay? 13 running backs, even freaking running backs like Frank Gore. I think he may have got 1,000 yards this season. And these guys couldn't even muster 4 yards per carry behind an offensive line that really wasn't that bad, behind Brandon Linder. So to me, you got to improve on your running backs, man. Leonard Fournette, take him 20 times. Or Dalvin Cook, whoever you like, I don't care. Take a running back to me with that fourth pick. We're going to get into that more in a second. We look at the defensive tackle position. I would pair Malik Jackson with someone better. I think Sindaric Marks right now is kind of done, or at least this was just a bad year for him. You can believe that he'll be better next year. I won't. I want to improve. Sheldon Day, perhaps he can, improve and be the defensive tackle next to Malik Jackson in the future. But for me, let's see what we can get. We look at defensive end. I do think some depth here would be nice. You can continue to develop Dante Fowler and Yannick Ngakoue. That's fine. But I would look for defensive end, just some depth. And Jared Odrick, I've never been a big fan of him, and neither of you, right? That's why you drafted Ngakoue. That's why you drafted Dante Fowler. So, and then just overall depth on this roster, offensive line depth, you can look at cornerback depth, more depth needed on this roster for when injuries happen, they can improve. I mean, this is a team that really wasn't that injured this year. They had their fair share of injuries, but just about average for the NFL. I mean, you can really critique things, but they were just about average when it comes to injuries this year. So we look at potential free agent and trade acquisitions. I want to pair Blake Bortles with a veteran quarterback and have a quarterback competition, or with a draft quarterback and have a quarterback competition. So let's start with quarterbacks. Nick Foles, EJ Manuel, Colin Kaepernick, Jay Cutler. Now, this would be very interesting, and none of these guys are very good, but neither is Blake Bortles, okay? And I think Jay Cutler could do something with these wide receivers. So I look at all of these guys and potentially have a quarterback competition with Blake Bortles, maybe Tyrod Taylor as well, but I really don't think they would do that. We look at running backs, Latavius Murray, who ran for only 4 yards a carry, but that's still better than what you got. And you could use, to me, a running back like Latavius Murray. Only problem is he's the only running back that will probably be out there. Le'Veon Bell is also a free agent, but he ain't going nowhere. Also, Jamal Charles, that name just came to me. He could be a potential cap casualty. You could look to sign him, and that would be a pretty good signing. Look at defensive tackles. Kawann Short. If you want to make another free agency splash, Kawann Short could be your guy. Bennie, Logan. He would be a nice run defender next to Malik Jackson, Brandon Williams, same thing. We look at Sylvester Williams, same thing. Jason Pierre-Paul, when we're looking at defensive ends, Jason Pierre-Paul, Jabaal, Sheard, Charles Johnson, all viable options at defensive end if you want a veteran presence there, and I would. We look at cornerbacks, Marcus Cooper, Terrence Newman, Leon Hall. None of these guys are great cornerbacks. You don't need a great cornerback. You have one in Jalen Ramsey. We're just trying to find a slot guy. If you guys re-sign Amukarama, if not, we're trying to find a number 2 guy. All of these guys could fit that mold. We look at some offensive line depth and just depth elsewhere. Chance Warmack, Hugh Thornton, also possible free agent acquisitions. Potential draft picks. We look at the first round. To me, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. It needs to be one of them. Unless if Johnathan Allen, the defensive end out of Alabama, falls. But if it's Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, good. You could perhaps alleviate some pressure off of Blake Bortles, and, perhaps that will finally make him, a better quarterback in the NFL. Perhaps. Either way, you need to fix your run game anyway, so let's just take a running back to me. I think that has to be a move for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've heard an early report that they're not looking to draft a running back. I think that's absurd. Just ridiculous. You gotta take a running back to me. If you want to go elsewhere, if Myles Garrett falls, I don't think he would. Let's just mention it. If you want to go elsewhere beyond that, Jabril Peppers, Jamal Adams, also available, Malik Hooker. Now, I wouldn't do it. I do like these players. Peppers not as much. Adams and Hooker I do. But I don't think you need a safety right now. I think you need someone that will make a better impact than that. Running backs would do that. Let's look at your second round pick now. Deshaun Watson, Brad Kaya. To me, you gotta pull the trigger here, man. I really, really, really feel it, man. You gotta put some pressure on Blake Bortles. Gotta give him some competition this year. And Deshaun Watson and Brad Kaya could transition and become franchise quarterbacks in the future for this football team or for any football team. I would pull the trigger. Well, one quick thing. This reminds me of the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, Blake Bortles. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. Remember Jake Locker? Now, the Tennessee Titans had in the 2014 NFL Draft, Jake Locker was going into a year where we're like, yeah, he's our franchise quarterback, but we don't love him, okay? And they had the opportunity to trade up for Derek Carr in the 2014 draft, and they did. They also had an opportunity to take Teddy Bridgewater in the first round, and they didn't. And it ended up biting them in the ass as that year, Jake Locker proved to not be the guy. Now, luckily for them, they ended up being so terrible that they were able to take Marcus Mariota that next year. However, this Jaguars team, they're going to get better coaching this year. They're going to make a jump this year. That could get them out of the running for a Sam Darnold or whoever ends up being a franchise quarterback next year. To me, you got to pull the trigger now. Get your Derek Carr. This could be a Derek Carr. I mean, Brad Kaya and Deshaun Watson could be a Derek Carr. Pull the trigger in the second round. Dante Foreman, running back out of Texas. Again, if you don't take a running back in the first round, take one here. Christian McCaffrey, same sentiment. We look at defensive tackles, Malik McDowell, Chris Wormley out of Michigan, Vita Vea out of BYU, or maybe out of Utah, DeMarcus Walker out of Florida State if you're looking at pass rushers, Taco Charlton. Looking at some other quarterbacks in the third round, Patrick Mahomes and Chad Kelly. So those are some potential draft picks. Those are some potential free agent acquisitions, some potential head coaches, Tom Coughlin, Mike Smith. I love Mike Smith. I would really sign him immediately. Vance Joseph, Josh McDaniels, Kyle Shanahan. We'll see who they sign. But you have to get a better head coach in there. And to me, you have to put pressure on Blake Bortles. This team has talent. You look at Jalen Ramsey, Telvin Smith, Johnathan Cyprien, Paul Puzzlesny, assuming he doesn't fall off a cliff, Allen Robinson, Allen Hurts, Marqise Lee. The quarterback right now, the quarterback play is not good enough. And they have to improve. They must improve if they want to improve as a team in 2017. So there you go. That's my 2016 recap and 2017 preview for the Jacksonville Jaguars. What are you guys' thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, this has been the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out.